It's November 26th, 2025 on a dark and foggy morning. Thanksgiving break had officially started down here in Florida, and everyone had gone home for the holidays. Well, that was of course, except for me, as I'd be staying down with family here for the holidays. But because Thanksgiving wasn't for another day, I thought I'd keep myself busy with some much needed train time. I left my apartment at around 4:40 in the morning to begin my long day of chasing the FEC. To make things easy, I decided to start out in the safest and most obvious spot in Daytona to see trains, that being at the Daytona Beach Country Club. As many local rail fans know, this is the least likely place you'll get mugged, stabbed, or attain any other bodily harm while trying to watch trains in the area. While the lighting wasn't great for my old Nikon camera at 5 in the morning, the ambience of the heavy morning fog made for a nice setting to see the first train of the day. Looking towards the north, we see the two-way signal at milepost 111, showing green for the first oncoming train. At 5:22 a.m., train 210 lit up the drag strip and began to sing the song of her people, waking up the sleepy suburban area off of ISB. Train 210 is a northbound manifest, originating in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and eventually going all the way up to Jacksonville. As train 210 finished passing Daytona, I hopped right in my car and headed south to set up my next shot in New Smyrna. After about a 20-minute drive, I stopped at a place me and my friends call the Smyrna Stretch, which is where rail and road run parallel for about half a mile. As I set up my shot, daylight savings time proved to be a major benefit for me, as the sky had already showed signs of waking up at around 6 a.m., providing ever so slightly better lighting than I was initially expecting. Facing south, we can see the distance signal through the heavy fog, giving the all clear for the next southbound train to enter New Smyrna Yard. Only a few minutes after arriving, I heard the sweet song of a P3 horn echoing through the Smyrna flatlands, which could only mean one thing. One of the FEC's famous EMD SD40-2s was on the head of train 103, a southbound manifest heading for Fort Pierce. At 6:23 a.m., the lights of train 103 curved into New Smyrna. But enough of my blabbering. Let's let that P3 do the talking. As train 103 knocks down the distant signals, the morning light started to improve even more for my shot as it lit up New Smyrna. That heavy morning fog still made it difficult for my old camera to focus as the last bit of the train rolled through the crosswalks. With the last bit of 103 out of eyesight, I raced over to the south end of the yard to set up for my next shot, as I knew 103 only stops in New Smyrna to drop off part of its train and pick up cars going south. This made for the perfect opportunity to see that SD40-2 up close. As I got to the south end, train 103 had already pulled across the street, getting ready for a shove back into the yard. These videos, of course, were taken on public sidewalks, and no trespassing was committed. After getting a fantastic roll-by with the 703, the gate suddenly went down again for another oncoming train. Turning south, train 204 could be heard in the distance. The echoes of a K5LH could be heard, indicating one of the line's ES44ACs, or Gevos as we rail fans call them. Not an exciting locomotive for sure. However, the already exciting day would continue to give pure FEC vibes, as you'll see here on train 204. At 6:49, train 204 passed through New Smyrna Yard at track speed, but as you saw, it wasn't pulled by one of the usual Grupo Zebra schemes with the LNG tender, but rather with a classic champion Gevo on the lead, with a retro blue GP unit following. After most of the roster had been repainted into the widely disputed Grupo Mexico scheme, only two ES44 ACs remain in the classic champion scheme as of November 2025. Interestingly enough, seeing a Gevo in the classic champ scheme is more rare than seeing the elusive SD40-2s themselves. Seeing two rare sights in one day made getting up at 4:40 all the more worth it. As the tail end of train 204 passes by, eager drivers try to get by before once again being stopped by train 103 pulling back onto the main to finish switching its train. While the drivers may not have liked it, I certainly enjoyed another slow roll by for the 703. With one final shove out of the way, the train was ready to go. But I decided not to stay in New Smyrna, as I had a different shot in mind for the last sighting of train 103 today. I made my way south to Hibiscus Drive Road, where I set up for a golden hour pacing shot. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of pacing where I'm the driver in my royal family career, but I'd say this shot turned out pretty nice. But again, let's let that prime mover on the 703 do the talking today. As the 703 rolls out of frame, the rest of train 103 rolls by in a slow trundle, picking up speed as it moves further south. After looking at the ATCS, it looks like train 103 was cleared into the next block further south, where it would then move over for train 202 headed northbound. Since I haven't ventured too far down south on the FEC, I'd be going in blind to try to catch 103 again. So I decided to call it a day there and head back north to catch the 202. As the last bit of train 103 rolled into the distance, the early morning segment of the day was pretty much complete. So with that, I headed back north to my next location. I arrived in the Holy Hill area around 8:50 with only a few seconds to spare. Just as I finished setting up my camera, train 202 rolled through North Holy Hill in a rather backlit scene. A little poor planning on my part, but I digress. As the 202 rolls past Holy Hill siding, the headlights of train 910 can be seen in the distance. Train 910 is a local freight that operates between South Daytona and New Smyrna, picking up different cars for industries along the way, but is more commonly known just to carry the rock cars. On the rock today is Loco 414, one of the more common GP units to be stationed in New Smyrna during the wintertime months. With the rock train headed south, the last morning rush on the FEC had finished up, and the section would remain quiet until the late afternoon. After grabbing some lunch and doing some stuff back home, I checked the ATCS again to find train 105 had popped up on the screen and was rolling south. So I decided to pop back over to the Daytona Beach Country Club, but decided to stay at the south end of the course to catch it passing through one of the golf cart paths. These golf cart paths were marked up by some very faded crossbucks, as you see here. Train 105 is a manifest that originates in Bowdoin Yard, Jacksonville. It then heads south down the line to the Port of Miami. A manifest is a train that carries all sorts of different cars, such as hoppers, tankers, and the all-American boxcar. The humble manifest is always nice to see, compared to the constant intermodal trains that we see on the line almost every day. Although we will see a plethora of auto racks and well cars on train 105 today as it rolls through North Daytona at 3:12 p.m. The 105 would be the last train on the line through Daytona until nighttime fell, which, as we all know in the wintertime, is pretty darn early. Regardless, I would later head back over to New Smyrna to see train 206 work the yard before heading north to Jacksonville. After about a 20-minute drive, I arrived back at New Smyrna to see train 206 just pulling into the yard. Normally, it would be a lot easier to see the actual switching maneuvers for this train, but the string of cars on tonight's freight had made it hard to see anything past the head end of the consist. And, as we all know, trespassing to get a better view is never an option. For me, at least. Sorry, I'm a goody two-shoes when it comes to rail fanning, especially down here in Florida. After watching a whole lot of nothing, aside from the engines shuffling in between cars, I headed back to Daytona to catch the 206 as my final train of the day. I thought about trying to chase it back to Daytona from New Smyrna, but every prior attempt at this, in either direction, has proved futile.
Oh, this will be the last red light we ever run into.
Shut the fuck up!
After driving back to Daytona, I later found out that some of the guys from our school's railroad club were actually still in the area until tomorrow morning. So all three of us set up some lawn chairs and awaited the arrival of train 206 at our favorite spot on the golf course. It was a very warm and sunny day for the later portion of the afternoon, but a cold front had moved in over the Daytona area, making for a very interesting shot of train 206 as a thunderstorm loomed in the distance. Another very interesting lash-up was on tonight's train, giving one more surprise to finish off the day of pure FEC vibes. last bit of train 206 rolling into the distance, it marked the end of a very successful day of chasing trains on the FEC. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. Remember, more train content is always on the way, so stay tuned, and I'll see you down the line.
Yes, sir, dude. Hell yeah.